Diddle-a-dum-dum, British Strongman podcast, episode 80. So, Shane, I'm going to put you on the spot here, mate. Came up with Axel to discuss last week. So you think of an exercise that's relevant at the minute that we can cover and help people with. That again, we'll cover 5 pillars of it. And I suppose this is a good example of this podcast being completely off the cuff. We try and keep it as relevant as possible with stuff that we get asked and things like that. But it's not a kind of, we're not sticking to a script. It's real. I've put Shane on the spot here and I can see him fucking looking around thinking, what the... So Shane, any exercise, any event for us to discuss, and you can fire it back to me and I'll say the first thing that I think is important about it, and we can just bounce back and forth. You pick it, as awkward as you want.
I'm going to go with, how about we talk about, and we don't really talk about it too much here, squatting, because I know that they've got the online qualifier that has got they've just thrown a 5-rep max squat out there. And I know a lot of my clients have been panicking a little bit because they've been on, I don't really put straight bar back squat in these days. It's mainly fronties and safety bars, stuff like that. So yeah, we'll talk about straight bar back squat. The rules, I believe, are wraps, suits, fucking everything goes. What would you say to someone? Because this is the question I've been getting asked a lot, Josh, which is, I've got this qualifying thing to do, 5-rep max squat. Should I be getting a suit? Should I be? Can I squat in a deadlift suit? Do I have to buy a suit? Is it worth buying one? Should I stick with wraps? What do you say?
Well, my immediate thing would be like find out obviously the what equipment you can use. So obviously, yeah, great that you can use the suits and wraps. That would have been my first question that you just answered actually, because realistically, like what have you got? Like a couple of months or something?
I think
got till March. So actually, it is a good period of time. But I mean, assuming that these people are advanced anyway and strong, you're not going to be able to get loads and loads of percent stronger in terms of force production, are you? Within the next few months, but you are going to be able to get, probably, if you say you're just used to squatting in sleeves, or say, for instance, you squat high bar because it's got maybe more carryover to strongman and stuff, you just do SSB, you just do fronties or whatever. I think actually having 2 or 3 months is a really good enough time to transition to learn low bar. I think personally, unless your mobility is absolutely dire and it's affecting everything else, like developing the mobility, I do think low bar is just easy gains for people to learn. Even if you don't have an extreme low bar, if you just try and basically get the bar stabilizing, get your head around stabilizing the bar with your delts with a little bit more forward lean, rather than it being on your upper traps. Like, just try that. And also as well, like if you're just used to squatting in sleeves or naked knees, like just banging, like even just transitioning to wraps and learning how to use wraps. And also, if money's no object, then I'd buy a couple of, try some different squat suits and stuff like that. Because the thing is with the suits, it's going to be about getting like a fit that's suitable for you, that doesn't just throw everything off.
Well, people ask me, can you squat in a deadlift suit? And I genuinely know the answer. I don't know.
Yeah,
you can. Yeah,
right. Yeah. So I would say that'd be an option for. I think the kind of, like, I'll hold my hand up. I'm not very well experienced in it, in terms of, well, I am quite experienced in it actually. I can get quite a lot out of a suit, but I mean in terms of knowing the inside out and the differences. But basically, if you put that's like for the guys listening to this, you have a deadlift suit. and they're umming and ahhing whether to get a squat suit or not, if you've got a deadlift suit, try squatting in it, or even just try straps down and just have just use them as briefs or whatever. And I guarantee that you'll get tension at the bottom position. That's good if you harness that and get used to. It just basically feels like you're just wearing like a deadlift suit that fits you, that's not mega tight. Try looser fitting. So that's why straps down might be better. Just give it a try, or give it a couple of sessions. It might mean that session 1 you do it to a high box or something and get used to the fucking it digging into your hips and whatnot. And then 3 or 4 sessions, you'll be able to just knock the box down until you get into depth. And just get used to because how it's going to feel different is going to be like, it's going to feel like almost you're unloaded at the bottom. So if you're walking out whatever weight you're doing and you squat down, it's going to feel maybe, I suppose, what's the easiest way to describe it? I suppose, this is kind of my kind of explanation as someone who's not an expert but has kind of dabbled in it, right? When you're using wraps, Shane, and you can get certain kind of wraps that you get down to the bottom and then they kind of spring you out. Where a deadlift, like say wearing a squat, or those squat suits that I've used. I even had a play using my deadlift suit last week for this, just for the sake of answering this question, actually, to give it a go. And what it almost feels like is less like you're kind of getting sprung out like an elastic band, but almost like the weight's kind of unloaded at the bottom and reduced, if that makes any kind of difference. So basically you're at that bottom position, and and because you've got that kind of that tightness, it's like unloaded. So your kind of drive out of the hole is going to be a little bit faster than it would if you were taking all the weight, essentially. Anyway, for the go and give it a go. Go and give it a go in your deadlift suit. And if it's like too tight, then try straps down. If you can get a squat suit or somebody, obviously go and try it, because it's just free kilos. It's 3 kilos. Like someone like me who's like, I would say I'm not very good at squatting at all. I can get a decent amount out of the suit, like, and not being particularly skillful. My wraps aren't great. The suit that I wore when I did it was pretty loose. But what did I do? 275. I've done like 275, and my raw squat was ropey 200. I
was looking for a 5 RM.
So yeah,
you don't be looking to add crazy amounts in the suit and wraps, do you? Even if you just get 20-30 kilo over what you would raw, then you've got some 3 kilos basically, haven't you?
Yeah, definitely. So using my numbers as an example, if I was doing it, and bearing in mind, like, as I say, I'm not an expert in suit and wraps, I'm just like kind of pissing about with them and playing with different techniques, right? But if I was doing just sleeves, I reckon I'd realistically be aiming for, if I could get even 180 for 5, like I'd be maybe 180, 190 for 5 or something like that, in that range. Whereas if I was going for a suit, I'd be convinced that I'd be able to get towards, I reckon I'd be aiming between 235 and 240. I reckon in the suit and wrap. So even if it was 230 and I got 190 raw, it's a lot for me. Like, that's 40 kilos, and that's like a relatively loose suit that's pretty comfortable, that's self-wrapping, because that can be a bit awkward as well. If you imagine you're wearing the suit, like wrapping yourself, like if you've got a really tight suit on and you're trying to wrap your knees, it can be a bit of a nightmare. So if you train with a team or whatever, someone can wrap your knees and whatnot, then you could potentially get even more out of it. So bouncing back to you, there's one thing covered. I would say, in a nutshell, try and get hold of a suit and get used to using wraps. If you can get hold of a squat suit, great. If you're just intrigued and you just want to have a dabble, try your deadlift suit with the straps down to start off with, and you'll probably be able to imagine what it's going to feel like when you get a kind of more specific setup to you. But yeah, give that a go. So right back at you, Shane, then talk to us about wraps. Then people like, say, scenario is, I do all my squatting. I'm pretty comfortable low bar squatting. All I use is SVD sleeves, and I'm looking to transition into wraps. And I've tried wraps once before, but I put them on and I squatted worse than I did raw because they just felt so tight and uncomfortable. What would you say to somebody in that scenario, which I feel like quite a few people are in that boat? That happened to me at first. In fact, after you fucking wrapped my knees about 5 or 6 years ago, you wrapped my knees. I thought, fuck that. I'm never wrapping my knees again. I couldn't walk. My legs are sore for days.
Well, what happens is basically what I did to you, which is wrapping too tight. I hate telling people this, but I always rate the Cerberus wraps. I think the class. The Cerberus rebounds are the wraps I would say to go with, just because they're real loose, real stretchy, and they're just real springy at the bottom as well. They're kind of nicer on your skin, and you don't need to wrap them very tight to basically get something out of them. So I always say, if you are, because most people get something out of the sleeves, like especially in Strongman, because they wear, tight triple plies, and people get 10, 15 kilo out of the sleeves, say. So we just want to start by getting a little bit more of the sleeves. So you don't need to wrap them crazy tight. Just like the first session, even if you wrap it so it feels like a sleeve the first set, and then a little bit tighter, then you might be like, well, that's a bit painful, I'll leave it there. Wrap that tightness. Obviously, also with wraps, you need to learn a pattern to wrap and kind of ingrain something so that you can do it exactly the same every time. Learning to count your revolutions so that you know how tight it is. Like if you like 6 revs, and then maybe next week or the week after I'm going to go to 7 revs, whatever. Just learning to keep track of that instead of being like, that feels okay, and then coming in next week and being like, well, I don't have a clue what I did. It just felt okay. So if you track your revolutions of the wrap, you know how tight you're pulling it. A good way to.
So just chipping in on that, what do you recommend for simplicity and somebody learning? Have you got a video on this, Shane? I'm sure I've seen one somewhere.
But not one regularly accessible, to be honest. I need to do one. I just think start below the knee. Make sure you tense the quad so the kneecap stays nice and stable. And you want to just basically go 3 up is most, will cover most people's knees. So you start just below the knee, and then your second wrap will be just overlapping the first wrap. That'll cover your kneecap. Then the third wrap will go just covering the second wrap and be over your VMO. That should cover your knee. You don't want to go too high or too low with wraps either. If you go too low, you're going to dig into your calf when you hit depth. When you go too high, you're going to dig into your hamstring. Again, it's not going to affect much, but it's going to hurt. So you can avoid that by not going too high or too low. And then I always think that you should probably have a cross in your wrap, because obviously your knee's tracking forward, and that's what's creating tension in the wrap. So you really want a cross over the knee, so that as that knee's tracking forward, if you're just going up and down, if you've got enough revs, it'll be fine. But if you don't have many revs, what can happen is as that knee's pushing forward, your knee kind of seeps through the wrap because it kind of open. So again, if you're starting with low revolutions, I would just go 1 below, 1 in the middle, 1 above, and then make a cross. So that'll be 5 reps, and then tuck it in. And a good way to find out how many revolutions you can work with is when you first wrap your knee, wrap it as tight as possible and see how many revs you get. And let's say you get 10 revolutions. You know that that's the kind of rough max tightness of your wrap. So you're going to start at 50% with like 5 reps. And then you can call it 60%, 70%, 80%, 90%, 100%, etc. And that's how, when I was powerlifting, that's how I would do it. Like I would know my numbers for different amounts of revolutions in my wraps and stuff, because I knew I could get more out of them if I did more reps. But when you learn, you don't want to start with too many revolutions either, because there's too much material there as well. There's a lot of tightness, a lot of pain, and you're just not going to hate it. You're not going to hit depth, and you're going to feel like you're getting stopped at the bottom instead of bouncing out of it if you go too tight soon. So rebounds.
What about length of wrap for beginners? Because you can get 2.5 threes, can't you? What would you?
Yeah, because in Strongman you're allowed anything. I would just buy 3 meters, because that way you can just tuck it early. You know, if you don't have to use the whole wrap, but then you've got room to, you know, just add more revs as time goes on. In powerlifting, a lot of feds are 2.5 meters, so a lot of people get them. But in Strongman there isn't a limit, so the longer the better.
Brilliant. Right, so next point, we'll go three more points on squatting. So back to me. So a big thing will be, like, especially if you haven't been squatting for a while or back squatting for a while, I think a common danger, well, I'm speaking from experience here, this is what happens to me, is because I don't back squat, I just do front squat. Every once in a while I'll back squat just for the sake of keeping the skill for if it comes in a comp. But because I'll be confident in what I can lift, like I'll be able to lift at like a relatively high percentage of, especially if I'm lifting in basically like a high percentage for my upper body to stabilize, if that makes sense. So basically, if I go and do, say, all I've been doing is front squatting, say, for instance, for the last year, but then say I put suit and wraps on today and went and did, say, 200 kilos for 5, like I'd be confident I could do it, but then I'd come to train tomorrow and I know that I'd have, like, say, elbow inflammation and my biceps flare up and stuff like that. So from doing low bar squat. So, but it's hard mentally for me to come in to back squat every once in a while and just go kind of light for a couple of sessions and build up, because I just think, well, I'm not really that arsed about it anyway. I'm not going to need it for ages. Like, I'm not going to do like a 4-week block waiting for my upper body conditioning to keep up. So if you feel like you're prone to like this kind of inflammation and you're worried about it potentially affecting your, like, say, your overhead training, like having to go with some speciality bars as you transition across. So like, say, safety squat bar is great, because obviously it just takes the elbows and stuff and the upper body out of the equation. But what I like, especially if you're peaking for a low bar squat, which I hope most of you will be doing if you're doing the England's qualifier, would be, I like the cambered bar, the thingy with, how do you describe it, Shane?
The bar, isn't it?
Yeah, camber bar, I don't even know how to pronounce it. You say camber bar, don't you? But basically it's just a bar that kind of hangs down a bit at the side. It's almost like a mini yoke that's been cut off that you can put the weights on. If you just Google it. But the great thing about that is you can actually get like a low bar position. You can feel like a low bar position, but you don't have to have your hands on the you can have your hands like lower down to the side, so you can practice like your what feels like low bar mechanics, but it's going to be a lot easier on the upper body and biceps and stuff like that. And then another speciality bar that some people use really well for this issue is what they call it, the strength shop have it as the bow bar. What do they call it? What's it called? The Gruffalo bar or something, is it? What, the Kabuki bar? Not the Kabuki bar. What's it called? The Duffalo bar, isn't it? Not the Gruffalo bar. What the fuck am I doing? Is it the Duffalo bar, Shane?
Duffalo, yeah, it's not Gruffalo.
But basically, you may have seen it in a gym. It basically looks like a bar that's been a barbell that's been left in a rack and bent. So the advantage with this is like you can get your low bar position, but then to stabilize with your hands, the bar's going to be the bit that you grab with your hands is going to be a little bit lower. So you can practice your low bar mechanics, but you don't need such an extreme range of motion on it. So if for instance, I was doing this kind of 12-week cycle to March or whatever, like I'd actually work like probably assuming that I'm going to do one main squat session a week, I'd actually do it as like, I don't know, maybe 4 3-week blocks or something, where like first 3 weeks I was working on safety squat bar, like and just getting used to a weight on my back, because when I did a bit of back squatting last week, it just felt alien. The squat didn't feel hard, it just felt like I was all over the place, like because it was unfamiliar. So I know I could do that with the safety squat bar just to get back into it, and then maybe transition over for 3 weeks on the cambered bar, and then start practicing the low bar kind of mechanics, and then transition over to the bow bar, and then the last 3 weeks could be straight bar. Or I know that sounds like quite a beautiful and perfect thing, that in reality it doesn't necessarily always work like that, but or other tactics that you can use, which some people use effectively, is like they'll build up to, like, say, a low bar top set on like the straight bar or whatever they're going to use, and then just do your back offs or your volume work on the kind of speciality bar that's a bit more friendly. What do you think, Shane?
Big Mitch doing that.
Yeah.
Top sets on straight bar, drop sets on safety bar, just so he doesn't gammed from his low bar position.
Brilliant.
I think that it's like when you're warming up, not everybody obviously, but for me, and Mitch is in the same boat, that's how we've done it. I start my low bar real wide grip, and it's not as stable on my back, but totally fine. And I'll get to a certain weight and I'll bring my grip in a little bit, and then I get to my top set weight and I'll bring my grip to where it should be for optimal tightness. But that's the grip that knackers me elbows and whatnot. So I'll do it for the set, and then afterwards my drop set work, if I were to do that even with just going a bit wider as well, because once it's like it's aggravated kind of thing.
Yeah.
So even going wider, my drop set work is going to add to that issue in my elbow, and then over a couple of weeks it'll end up being fucked. Whereas if I just get the top set done and then go to the safety bar, by the time I'm finished on the safety bar, my elbow's relaxed again, not kind of going to become chronic. You know, it's a bit of an acute issue during the top set, but then it fucks off because it's only getting exposed like once, as opposed to 4 back off sets afterwards or whatever. So yeah, Big Mitch, I've got his program up here in front of me randomly now. Back squat, top set, then on the safety bar. So yeah, that's what we've got Mitch doing, and that's just a good way. I said a lot of you big guys will probably, not all of you, but most of you are probably going to struggle with a low bar position.
So does Mitch do low bar?
Mitch does low bar, yeah.
Yeah. Wow.
Done it in a long while. So
right. So that's an idea. I don't know if you've ever played with it, but that's an idea. Would be like, I don't know if he's got a cambered bar, but I can just picture it now. How, because for me personally, like, you know, like obviously I get anal about being as specific as possible. Like if I go to a safety bar, it just feels like I'm more like so different to low bar for me. And it would, like, for somebody who's not practicing it that much as well, and I just feel like cambered bar can just practice the same movement pattern, but it's super friendly. So just maybe something for you to try anyway. A suggestion, an idea.
Your safety bar low bar, or do you have it high bar?
Say again.
Your safety bar high bar or low bar?
The safety bars that I use, I can't have anything other than high bar.
Okay. All right. See, my safety bar is quite low bar-y.
Right.
Push the handle like down my back a little bit. So it's. Are you on the strength shot one? You're on the strength shot one, aren't you?
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't think you can do on the strength shot one actually. The handle short, so if you went low bar, it's kind of like falling off. Yeah, no, that makes sense. Yeah, I don't know what Mitch's is like, but I just know mine. I can kind of go low bar. Yeah, when you got to go high bar, haven't you?
And another thing to add to this, the thing that I tried last week, where I stumbled upon by mistake. I've never read it or anything. I don't know if you have, but playing with it, like I used the axle bar last week when I did some back squats, and because I've done it before, I did it before in like an online comp. It was like whatever it was, and it was with an axle bar. And that was a thing that I noticed. I did an AMRAP set and I was like, fuck me. Like I could log the day after, like my arms weren't chewed up. So thinking about it, what happens to the axle bar is you can't grip it, because I'm going like false grip with the axle bar. I can't even grip it anyway. Especially with whatever weight you're doing on your back. Like, so you find with the axle bar that it's so unforgiving. Like if you go like mong it go to round forward or whatever, like there's no chance of the axle bar. It'll just roll off. You have to keep that torso angle. So because I've realized that that's personally what I do, which contributes to my upper body soreness, is the fact that because I'm gripping the bar. When I'm twisting and rolling forward or grinding or whatever, I'm actually gripping the bar and pull it and stopping the bar rolling up my neck. Do you know what I mean? So that's contributing to that upper body tension. So you can't do that with the axle bar unless you've got massive hands or whatever. Like I did it last week and I wasn't gripping that axle bar at all. So I knew that I couldn't tip forward. So not only is it reinforcing decent mechanics, I could hit low bar, reinforcing good mechanics, and I wasn't getting the elbow sauna. So that's something for people to try.
And I've squatted on an axle a lot, but not for a very, very, very long time. And back then I was extremely mobile, so I could get under a squat, you know, put it low bar, high bar, fucking whatever, no problem. But nowadays, so yeah. And
the thing that I noticed with it as well was, for somebody who doesn't back squat but yokes a lot, heavy-ish, that I was just putting it in my yoke spot and it felt like the yoke. It felt really light because of the obviously thicker surface area on the axle bar. It felt lighter than the equivalent weight on the barbell, if you will.
Yeah, you're fucking yoking 400 kg, aren't you? So you'll feel.
Yeah, it was. So again, that's an idea. So few speciality bars. I think we've given away some good stuff there, Shane. So going to wrap it up there, mate.
Right.
Anything else to add? Like, because I don't want to talk about technique and stuff like that, because we're talking to people here who are already advanced, really. Or if you're looking to,
with these qualifier things,
yeah,
my guys is like, I don't think you got to extract like 100% 5 hours like it's an online qualifier to England, but you know there was 20 spaces last year, and you know half the people didn't adhere to the rules. You know, like 35th place ended up coming like 17th or something because people can't stick to the fucking rules of the video, stuff like that. But I don't think you need to give it your full training focus. I'm trying to tell my guys this, like, you know, you've got other things coming up in the year that are going to be more important than. Basically, I don't want people to smoke themselves on a 5 rep max fucking suited back.
Yeah.
And so whatever, get fucked up because, you know, because when you're talking about these big dudes in suits and stuff, you're going to be handling some stupid weight, aren't you, on the back squat? So I just told them to be a bit reserved with it. And as long as they extract more than what they were expecting raw from the wraps and the suit and they're happy with the score, if you're strong enough, you're going to qualify. You know what I mean? It's just the way it is. You don't have, you know, if you could maybe do 380 for 5 and you upload 365 for 5,
yeah,
you're going to be fine. You know what I mean? Because you've also got the farmer's hole.
Yeah, I would agree with that. If it's going to be if it's going to be anything like last year in terms of qualification, the people, it's like similar entries. Like if people go and hit 90% of the 5 RM or whatever, and just put up the score of what they can actually do, I think most people. Anyway, I'm fucking speculating, so that's just bullshit. So just forget what I've just said.
Yeah, it's fucking, and no one's gonna be fucking peaking the gear, peaking the trend, all this stuff to squat those weights because, you know, you're just not. You're gonna hit a good training 5 rep max, and then you start your peak for the actual comp. You don't peak for the, you know what I'm saying, Josh?
Yeah, definitely.
People are just messaging me, and I think they're going a bit mad. Like, I need to squat 400s, and I'm like, you don't. Like, you really don't. Let's just put a good training number up, check the scoreboard, and then if it's a bit light, we can just do another one a little heavier. But you don't need to in mid-Jan. You don't need to squat 400 for 5.
Right. So I'll put you on the spot here, Shane. So if you might be doing England's. I don't know. Like if you were doing England's online qualifier, what would you aim to put up as a minimum on the 3? Not necessarily you personally, but like as like a minimum. Like what kind of minimum lifts do you think I'd have a chance based roughly on last year? I'll give you like a 10 kilo range on the overhead.
Yeah, so it's the 1 rep max axle, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm thinking like 150 plus on the axle, around about 300 on the squat, and what's it, farmer's hold? Like 150, 160 as a minimum, like 150, 160. But I'm imagining there's going to be some. The thing with these events is going to be good is you're going to get like someone's going to get like a really high axle, but they might not quite get a farmer's hold, which is why I'm saying if you put those 3 up,
yeah,
you're winning anything, but you're going to be similar-ish each event. If I did that, I'd be looking at a 160, 170 axle, but then I'd only hold probably 130 farmers. So, you know, that would drop me a lot of points. And you're going to get swings like that in this event, just because there's kind of like 3 different. Same with the squat as well. I think that the squat, you're going to get some mad squatters and you're going to get some people that aren't that good at squat because you don't need to. It's a bit of a shit event, really, I think, personally, Josh, for a qualifier for England, because you don't need, it doesn't really, you know what I mean? You don't need to be good at squats to be good at strongman, do you? At all. So I do think that I know some good athletes that just ain't good squatters, and they might get a bit screwed over there a little bit. So that's why I think a 300 squat for 5, it's not fucking world changing, but it's a good set of 5 squat. So I think that'd be a good minimum to aim for, personally. That's what I'd aim for. I've already squatted 300 for 6, so I would be aiming.
Right, spot on, mate. Right, nice one. Diddle-a-dum-dum.